So how did this actually happen?
Yeah, good morning. So hold on to your hat because there are quite a few layers of financial engineering here. So Saudi Aramco is obviously blacklisted by a lot of ESG investors. It has very low, some of the lowest possible ESG scores. But what happened was that back during the pandemic, it created two pipelines, one for oil, one for gas. It then sold 49% in each of those to two groups of investors, one led by EIG, Global Energy Partners, and the other led by BlackRock. Those investor groups then got bank loans, bridge loans to pay for that investment. But then to pay back the banks, they created special purpose vehicles. And those special purpose vehicles were registered in Luxembourg. And they then got a very decent ESG score, so that when they issued bonds, those bonds ended up being bought by ESG investors. Now, one has to remember, of course, that the sole purpose of those bonds was to finance those two oil and gas pipelines.
So, Tasneem, what does this actually say about the guardrails around ESG?
Well, I mean, this is an unusually complex set of structures that clearly retail investors would have a very hard time penetrating, but even professional investors often wouldn't know that they are in fact own bonds that somehow have this connection. So it just goes to show that that the layers of complexity really make a huge difference here. The other thing is that part of what enabled all of this is the rating on the SPVs, and so in Europe, the European Commission last month actually put forward a sweeping proposal that means that the entire ESG ratings and ESG scores industry is going to have to sort of come under much more uniform and transparent regulations in the not too distant future.
So, Tasneem, are there any regulations in the pipeline that will actually address any of these issues? And could that be on a global? Would that need to be on a global level?
So until now, what has happened in the EU in terms of ESG regulations has tended to have global ramifications, like the SFDR regulation for ESG investors. And so the expectation is that when the EU starts regulating ESG ratings and ESG scores, which will be the first time that that's happened in the history of this sort of mushroom or this cottage industry of ratings, that will have ramifications also on a global scale that will hopefully give ESG investors more insight into complex structures like this one.